what do you think the payroll function will look like in 2030?
I think it will be, payroll is something that touches everybody without you really even knowing about it. I'm really passionate about finding the next generation of people and really trying to encourage them. If Deel would have been around at that time, it would have been music to my ears and my job would have been so much easier. But at the time, we used in-country partners. So for each country, we hold your hand and get you started within global payroll and setting you up. One of the reasons why Deel has been a standout and a disruptor in the market of payroll providers is it doesn't just sit there and say this is global payroll and you have to follow these certain rules. It's an absolute disruptor.
Managing a global team is complex, but Deel makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deel to hire, pay, and manage their teams worldwide. See how Deel works at deel.com/nickday. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform. Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nick Day. I'm the CEO at JGA Recruitment Group, and we're specialist global payroll recruiters. And you'll notice I emphasize the word global. Well, we have got an absolute global leader in this space joining me on today's episode. But before I introduce her, just want to remind you all to remember to subscribe to this show. Follow the show if you haven't already. If you can leave us a review, I'd be eternally grateful. That really helps the algorithms on both podcast channels and video channels like YouTube to really share the episode with even more people interested in payroll. And please do remember as well to share it with all of your payroll colleagues and friends. Share the love and we'll raise the profile of global payroll together. Now, in this episode, I am indeed joined by global payroll leader Vic O'Callaghan, who went from processing payslips to shaping the future of payroll transformation at one of the fastest growing global payroll platforms in the world. You'll know them already from this show. It is, of course, Deel. And we're going to explore today how just one job launched a lifelong passion, what's fueled Vic through her payroll's toughest challenges, and what leaders and newcomers alike can learn from her journey across implementation, transformation, delivery strategy, and now even sales as well. But more about that in just a moment. If you've ever wondered where payroll can take you, maybe you've been in this industry for a little while and you feel like there's a glass ceiling. We're going to show you how you can smash through that. We're going to show you how passion and purpose can very much fuel a real thriving global payroll career. So this episode is going to be for you if you're feeling like that. And without further ado, welcome, Vic, to the Payroll Podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Very excited to be here. I've been following your podcast for such a long time. So I'm very, very pleased I finally get to be in and have a chat to everybody and really go through, what my career has been very much within payroll.
Me too. And of course, we've met numerous events. I saw you out at Payo Congress the last couple of years. I've seen you in the UK, but I've kind of watched your journey as well. And we've been in touch with different positions. It's been really interesting today, hopefully, to bring some of that journey to life. Before we get there, though, first question I ask all of my guests: what does the word payroll mean to you?
I think it's a really interesting question, because I think for payroll, a lot of people just think it's a payslip. It's whether you're going to get paid at the end of the month and that's it. And for me, it's a lot more than that. It's something that, has been with me for such a long time, and it hits every single person, whether you really know it or not. Payroll is ingrained into everybody's life. It's receiving that pay at the end of the month, whether it's right, if there is something wrong with it, you're going to feel it, and it really affects everybody's life. So I think for me, payroll is something that touches everybody without you really even knowing about it.
Great place to start. So let me ask you another challenging question for some. And this is something, if you're new to this show, listeners, or whether you've joined me for a long time, I'm really keen to kind of come away from this. We fell into payroll process. But for you, did you fall into it or did you choose it?
I did. I really hate to be that cliche of saying I did. I fell into it. I didn't really know, but I did. Somebody was talking to me about it the other day, and you don't want to sit there and say, yes. I don't think I'd love to find these people who really say I chose it. But what I'd really love to do is find those people in the next generation who actually said I did choose it. And I think that for me is really, I fell into it, but I'd really love to see the next generation of payroll people, coming away from people like me and the old timers who have been in it for years and saying, you know what, I've been following people. I've been watching, like yourself in your podcast, and going, after that, I did decide to choose it. So I'm really passionate about finding the next generation of people and really trying to encourage them. For me, my story was, yes, I fell into it. I think I said to somebody, showing my age, I think it was about 1997, 98, really going back to it. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I came out of school. I'd worked with a recruitment company before, and I'd literally seen an advert, and it was a deco. It was a deco right in the middle of Manchester, and they were looking for an administrator. They didn't even call it a payroll administrator at that time. And that was my first look into recruitment, and I thought I desperately wanted to work in recruitment. And I ended up working as a payroll administrator. And the highlight of my week was a Friday, because on a Friday, everybody came into a really busy office in the middle of Deansgate, and it was my job to sit there in the front desk and literally hand out payslips, and they would hand me in their timesheet, and I would sit there and add it up. And you don't realise at the time that that is actually payroll. That was my very first job, and I'd seen what a weekly payroll was like, and I'd be ripping up, pay slips and putting them into envelopes and packing them and literally doing this. And that, I thought that was the highlight of my job. That was my week. That's what it looked like. And when you sit there now and say to people, it's like, I sat there and I added up a weekly pay slip every single week, and we would input them into the payroll system. And people are saying, like, you actually handed out paper pay slips? And I'm like, yeah, we did that for years. We had these ginormous printers that would be very, very noisy, and they'd sit there printing out all these gross to net reports, payroll summary reports. And that is, that was recruitment payroll, and that is what we did. And that was like my very, very first job. It has changed over the years, thank goodness. I'm glad it's not fully pay slips and paper anymore. But that was like my first taste. And I don't think back then I really realized what payroll was about. And when you see how much it's evolved, thinking of AI and the compliance tools and everything else, and certainly what Deel does now, it's a world away from where I very first started.
Sure. I mean, I find it really interesting. I remember those days, by the way, having come through recruitment, obviously not through payroll, but as a recruitment consultant operating in payroll, those perforated pay slips you'd rip off with the holes down the sides. And, it's quite interesting. It's great for me to have someone like yourself on the show who's actually seen my role through a different lens as well, because you've worked in recruitment, you've got a partner who's worked in recruitment, so you've got a really good understanding of the industry anyway, so it's very different. And actually, it's really interesting. You thought you wanted to go into recruitment and actually ended up going into payroll. But who knew then you'd end up as the head of one of the fastest growing global payroll platforms? You're in global payroll now rather than just domestic. So if we rewind a little bit, how did that global journey begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was very, very lucky. I've had most probably maybe 5 payroll roles in the whole of my career, and I've got to work with some amazing, amazing companies. One of the, once I moved out of recruitment, I was very lucky to work again in the centre of Manchester for a big finance company, and their payroll was very much UK payroll. And they taught me a lot about accuracy. And I think certainly when you work for within a payroll role and it's attached, when you have these conversations, are you attached to finance? Are you attached to HR? I was very lucky to work within the finance side of it, and it really taught me about the accuracy side of it. It was a great place for me, but I think people will either say, I really want to stay within UK payroll, or I really want to start globally. One of my next roles after that was working for a company called the Hook Group, or THG now, an amazing company. I was very lucky. I was with them for about 8 years, and that was the company that I worked with that really introduced me to global payroll. And they, they still do such amazing things, but they always acquired companies that always brought on several different countries. And that was really my first taste of going from UK payrolls to now they was bringing in, there was the US, there's Spain, there's Germany. And with each company that they acquired, they brought on several countries. And you would have to quickly try and implement these onto your software, onto your systems, and how that's going to work within the whole environment of what the Hook Group was about at that time. So for me, that was really my introduction to global payroll, because I would very much be able to hand on heart say, I didn't know the first thing about Spanish payroll, Germany payrolls. I didn't know that.
How did you handle it? Because for some people, that must be terrifying. If now you've got to pay 200 people in Spain, or maybe more, thousands of people in Spain, and you've got no experience necessarily. You're like, where do you go to find the information? How do you handle and project manage that new demand? It must have been a very sort of quick process or quick learning curve.
Really fast, because especially when they were acquiring companies, it was very much like, oh, we bought this company and we need to get them live on payroll next month, or in 2 months' time. Now I've got a very big appreciation of that, seeing it from Deel's point of view, and that's how clients work. It's really is, some of the basis of how I work now is remembering those days and how I was as a client. But I think you don't really realize at that time, because payroll is a very high demand. It's very much you get on and you just do it, and you have to do it because I think you realize the implications. You know that if you get somebody's payslip wrong, that's somebody's mortgage, that's their bills, that's how they survive. You get that wrong, and that's what I really appreciate about payroll people is you can't just sit there and say I don't know how to do it, I'm not going to do it. Like, that's going to really affect people, so you learn. You're very curious. You sit there, it's a new challenge, and that with each one of them is really what myself, and I had a great team there. We were working with in-country partners. People like Deel didn't even exist back in that day. So I would know if Deel would have been around at that time, it would have been music to my ears and my job would have been so much easier. But at the time we used in-country partners. So for each country, you're going to a separate provider. You're going in asking them can you explain to me what all these things are on this gross to net report? We had a fantastic finance team there as well. You worked extremely closely with them, but every country, and every time somebody said, hey, we're bringing in a new country, a new payroll, it was almost like it's a challenge. And you'd have to learn constantly. But I think as payroll people, you constantly would want to learn something new. It's a new challenge, and it's a new thing that you can sit there and say, okay, I'm never going to be a fully expert on that country, but I've learned something new. And it's something that you will take away with you, that you'll now want to grow, you want to learn more. And I think payroll people are naturally curious in that way.
I would agree. I mean, it's always changing, right? If it's not legislation, even if just doing domestic payroll, that's changing all the time. Globally, of course, it's changing in different countries all of the time. Then you've got technology and other innovations kind of impacting the space all the time. Was there a moment under all that pressure where it suddenly clicked for you? You went, this is it. I've got it now. I can handle the pressure. I don't mind. I'm not fazed by a new country coming in. I know my process. I know what I need to do.
I think certainly within that period of when I was working at THG, things started to click, and then you start to really realize that this is going to be a career for you. This isn't just going to be a job. This is something that you're passionate about, that you want to get right, and then you go, this makes sense. This is where I want to be. And I think there's a certain point in everybody's career, and certainly within payroll, where you'll sit there and go, is it a job, or am I actually, this is what I want to do? And I think certainly with THG, because you are just bouncing off the fact of something else and something new and constantly changing. And I loved that part of it. And I think that really set the marker for me to be saying, this is what I want to do. And actually, it was global payroll that I want to do. I was able to build some amazing teams there. I met some amazing, people, and really watched how their careers were going as well. And for me, yeah, I think THG was most probably a bit of a turning point where I sort of like said, yeah, this is something where I found something that I really enjoy. And I think when you're in a position whereby it is very stressful, you've got to still say, I really still enjoy it, and I still get a buzz from doing it as well at the same time. And I think that was sort of like a turning point for me, very much coming out of just doing the domestic and the UK payroll and seeing that there was something within a global aspect that I really felt that I really started to enjoy a lot more.
You're obviously someone who likes a challenge. I was interested when you mentioned, I wish Deel existed a little bit earlier. That would have been a music to your ears, right? But you took an opportunity to join what really has been the EOR space, has been a real disruptor to the global payroll space in a positive way. We've seen lots of businesses suddenly come up from nowhere, Deel being one of the most successful global platforms that's come to market. What was it about that opportunity then that led you to leave THG to come across? Because I know obviously if I understand it correctly, one of your scopes of requirement in that role was to build a team almost from scratch. And of course, you've done that so successfully. You're doing it all over again now in a new role on the sales side. Tell us a little bit about that journey, about that thinking process as well, about making that move.
I was very, very lucky. I was given an opportunity by Alex Buaz and Dan Westgarth, and they basically gave me such a fantastic opportunity to join Deel and to very much say, we want you to come and build a team for us. They really saw the value in payroll people. Deel has an amazing platform. The products that we do is constantly, there's something new and changing all the time, but they also have just as much respect for actually making sure that they have payroll people there and the knowledge supporting everything that we do. And they approached me and said, we would like you to build an implementation team for us. And it was something that I could not say no to, because to be able to start a team right from scratch, and certainly the spec of where I was sort of like 2 years ago to where I am now, that team has evolved. We've built a fantastic team, and we're renowned for, Deel, everything that Deel stands by, and the team that we've been able to build. They're all country level experts. They're all Deel employees, and they're supporting clients go live, their implementations, and really making sure that for what some clients can be is a really stressful time. They know maybe that they've got 20 countries, and they're all done by all local providers. They come to Deel for the fact that they want to consolidate it all into one amazing platform. And what implementation is really there for is to support them on what can sometimes be stressful, to really make it that smooth journey. And we really believe that we've got something that's very special there, that hopefully, people say at the end of it, okay, well, I thought it was going to be really tough, and actually it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be. Maybe wouldn't want to do this every single year, but actually, yeah, we've got it, and I really felt supportive. The new role that I'm doing now is really in pre-sales, and again, I've been asked, can we set up a new team? So for me, again, it's another challenge. But the last 18 months for me, I've been very, very blessed to work with something that I've never had the exposure to, which is really putting payroll people really client facing in front of clients as part of the sales process as well. And I know we were just discussing before that, is really helped working with clients where they've said, like, we didn't feel like you were sales. You're not out to sell us something, you're out to support us, and really make sure that within the pre-sales delivery side of it, that clients really feel that we're setting them up for a really successful implementation, a really successful project, and how I can, really leverage my team's experience within payroll operations, within implementation, to really get them ready for that project. So as soon as they go live, it's a really smooth and comfortable process for them. So for me, I love working with clients where I get to be very client facing, but I get to really support them. And one of the things I will always say is, I've been in exactly the same position as you. I worked, with THD for nearly 10 years of being a client, working in implementation projects every single month. So I know exactly what you're going through. And that they sort of like, go, okay, well, you're not a salesperson. You've done this. You've been on our side of it. And I really think that really resonates with people.
I find it really interesting, Vic, because you went into a role where initially you were kind of under pressure with these new mergers and acquisitions globally coming in-house, having to learn really quick, having to adjust. You've left that challenging role straight into in-house to client-facing. So that, again, can be, for many payroll people watching or listening to this, that can be quite terrifying. Payroll typically can be quite introverted as an industry. We're about process, we're about compliance. We're not necessarily always looking for that external client level of engagement, but you've actually come out of So tell me a little bit about that journey going out from in-house into, I guess, a vendor supplier side, having always worked with vendors, now being part of one. What was that transition like for you?
I didn't think I would love it as much as I do. I'm not saying I'm an introvert, but I would definitely didn't. You see these payroll teams where people are sat there with like the headphones on and they're just really happy, sort of like processing and doing that. I always thought I was more comfortable with that side of it. I didn't think I would actually enjoy it as much as what I do. And actually, I love doing what I do. I love being that client facing side. I enjoy doing, on-sites with clients and webinars with them, and a lot of workshop sessions that I do as part of the role that I do now. It was a bit daunting. Alex Boazes said to me, like, hey, this is a really client-facing role. And he stressed that to me a few times, like, are you comfortable with that? And I was like, actually, yeah, I saw it as a big challenge. I saw it as, people within payroll like to take new challenges, like to take a new approach. And I feel that, for me to have a career that spans the length of time that my career has gone at the moment, like 20, 25 plus years, I felt that I've had to have that level of change. I really wanted to find something new that I could tackle, that I could really get stuck into and really enjoy, and feel that it was going in a different direction. I've sort of like gone, okay, I've done that now. I've done payroll operations. I've built amazing teams. Okay, what's next? Do I want to go into
you're now into sales, which for a lot of people would terrify people going, and you've done sort of operations, external, implementation. You've got a full gambit now. I remember doing that CIPP sort of talent pathway piece, like 60 different roles. I feel like you've done most of the 60.
Yeah, I think I'm nearly there. But I didn't think, when this role came up and it was like, do you want to go into sales? And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure. That's a really different one. And I don't think it's for everybody. But I think because I've had a taster of it the last 18 months, and I think they've sort of like gently, put me into this, I've been able to have a touch on it first of all and seen if I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm very, very lucky. I work with some amazing sales teams and they're very, very supportive of me. They all have, we bounce off each other on these calls. So I think I was able to have a taster of it the last 18 months to see if I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I generally did. And I don't think it's for everybody. But for me, it's a new challenge. It's a new direction for me. I feel like I've tried a few different areas out now over those last years. So for me, I really feel that there is absolutely no reason why you can't put payroll people into the sales side of it as well.
I agree. Yeah.
So for me, I'm very much there to sort of like say, hey, bring more payroll people. When a client is making that decision of what software they want to choose, let them really speak to the payroll people and the country level experts. And I'm very open in saying, speak to our implementation team. Let me bring you an expert from Spain onto a call. Ask them as many questions as you want to do, because we're very confident in the experts that we've got, in the payrolls that we've got. And because they're, none of them are outsourced and they are all Deel employees, you absolutely can speak to any of them. So we're very confident to bring them really into that sales process. So you can make that decision with the people that are going to be running your payroll.
Attention payroll leaders. If you're listening to this, you already know that payroll has never been more complex. Compliance risks are rising, skilled talent is scarce, and getting it wrong can cost your business way more than just money. It can cost you trust, retention, and of course, brand reputation. I'm Nick Day, host of this show and also CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, specialist global payroll recruiters. Here at JGA, we're so passionate about payroll, we've even turned it into music. Don't believe us? Head to your favorite audio platform and search for Payroll Powers the World, and you can quite literally join us in song about how we believe payroll deserves its moment in the boardroom to shine. At JGA, we'd like to think our passion shines through to our recruitment results as well. With a 97% retention rate and an average 19-day job brief to hire success rate, we work fast, we work strategically, and we work with purpose to connect you to the hidden payroll talent that job ads and direct search methods will simply never reach. So if you're hiring or indeed planning to hire, why not partner with the experts that are shaping the future of payroll? Partner with jgarecruitment.com today, or better yet, drop me a message directly, and together we can make sure your next payroll hire is your best one yet. No, it makes total sense from my perspective. I think of Maria Mason, for example. Years ago, she started in sales, and now she's the first equity partner for one of the top 5 accountancy firms. And I think it's because she had that rounded expertise of not just implementation, not just payroll, but she's got sales as well. You're now similar. It gives you that opportunity when you're working with clients to understand their problems from a genuine user in-house perspective. You understand the problems they may have from a vendor perspective. You understand the challenges around implementation, and also now around the sales side. It gives you a really good intuition to hopefully understand if a client has a problem or they're not quite sure what questions they need to ask. You can kind of help guide them with compassion, empathy, and understanding. And I think that's critical. So for me, I'd be recommending as a recruiter, if people have opportunities to broaden their skills in the world of payroll, I would say take them, because you never know where they could lead. And it's led you right to the top of, director of one of the fastest growing global platforms in the world, right?
And I think the thing is that, payroll isn't just all about processing. I think if you went back 20 years ago, when I very first started, it was the role of processing a payroll, data input. It was just about purely doing that. And that's what it felt like. Certainly for me, that was my very first role, all the way going back to Adecco. Was very much, I was entering timesheets, I was entering hours, and that's what I thought payroll was all about. And you fast forward to what it is now, and it's so broad a spectrum of what a role in payroll can really be. And it's very much, I can't remember who I was speaking to a few weeks ago, and they were saying how many job titles really is there in payroll, in implementation, within sales. It is what you make of it. It isn't just about payroll processing anymore now. There is compliance, there is, AI functionality, there's payroll product builders, payroll engineering. So I think now it's a lot broader, the role that you can really choose. And for me, this just came quite naturally. I was quite, it was something that it didn't really take long for me to go, yeah, let's do this. It was a new challenge. It was something that was a new direction, just as exactly the same as moving from operations into implementation.
So what's your view on the chief payroll officer? Lots of talk about this in social media. I have a view. I think it could exist, but for me, it's only really going to exist within businesses, from my perspective, where there is a payroll level of service that's part of the product offering. I can't see it happening at a JP Morgan or at an eBay or whatever, but I can absolutely see it at a business like Deel or one of the other vendors or software providers. What's your view?
And I think you're absolutely right. I think it will exist in time. Do I think it will be in the next few years? No. I think it's still, I think you're still having them conversations of people saying, do payroll, can we really get a seat at the table? Yes, you really can. And, payroll has come a long way. Certainly in the last 10 years, it's gone a long way. Will there be a chief payroll officer? I think there will be, but I think you're absolutely right. It's for the companies like Deel. It's the big payroll providers who really find the emphasis on payroll, and, their world revolves around the payroll side of it. Is it going to be your local company that is, around the corner, just maybe for a UK payroll? No, I don't think it will sit in that. I think it will exist because I think, we've gone past those conversations of where payroll sits. Is it finance? Is it HR? Is it standalone? I think we've gone past that now. I think people understand very much that it is, you are your own. You don't belong to anybody, and payroll is its own, unit there. But I think it's still going to take some time. And I think, whilst we've got people like yourself, there is so many people within the industry really banging the drum for payroll. I think it will, but I still think we're still a few years off from there yet.
So I want to take it back a moment, just because the point you raised earlier on, where I wish I'd known about Deel, or Deel existed, would have music to my ears when you're doing in-house country partners. So there might be people listening to this that aren't familiar with what Deel do and how the Deel model is different to that in-house country partner model, and why that would have been music to your ears back in that moment. So can you tell the audience a little bit more about what Deel do and why it's different, why that kind of the level of service, the platform has been such a disruptor in the global market?
Yeah, sure. And certainly for what Deel looks at is, it originally started off as to being a contractor platform and how you can pay contractors. It very quickly moved into employer of record. So for people who don't know about employer of record, it's if you don't have your own legal entity, you can use the Deel legal entity to employ anybody around the world in over 130 different countries. And then it moved into my favorite area, which was global payroll, which is when a client already has their own legal entity set up, and we will be able to run a managed payroll service for them. My team was the implementation team, so we hold your hand and get you started within global payroll and setting you up. I think that one of the reasons why Deel really has been a standout for me, certainly, and a disruptor in the market of payroll providers, is it doesn't just sit there and say, this is global payroll and you have to follow these certain rules. It's an absolute disruptor in what they do. And there is no book, and everything changes so fast between, the AI functionality that we have in there, the compliance that we have in there. It really takes, we move at speed, and that is between the products that we build, everything that we're launching. You just have to look at LinkedIn and see the amount of launches. You really have to keep up to date with everything that Deel is absolutely doing, because a weekly basis it's changing. But I think for me, it's also for the fact that it's about the Deel people that are involved in there as well. We don't use in-country partners. We're using, I always say, when you look at the implementation teams and the payroll operations teams, we've got hundreds of payroll operations people who are supporting you there. We're making sure that when a client has a question, you're getting answered by a Deel and play within a matter of seconds. If you don't want to speak to somebody and just want to use the chat and the AI functionality, it's there. For me, I absolutely wish that I could go back to my days in THG when we were talking about an employer of record. And honestly, we didn't even understand at that time what an employer of record meant. It didn't really exist at that time, and certainly nothing that Deel had. So I absolutely wish that if I could go back now to my days when we were first launching Global Payroll and somebody said to me, hey, can you get a country up and running in 10 days? Yes, I would love to be able to do that. That is what Deel can absolutely do. So it would have made my job 10 times easier if Deel would have been around. For me, it's amazing to work with a company with what Deel does and how fast things are changing, because I think for the amount of time that Deel has been around, I'm sort of like going, what are they going to do in 5 years' time? Because if you can see what we've done in the last 6-7 years, see what we're going to be doing in the next few years, and it's real-time payroll is just the iceberg of it.
Yeah, well, I'll probably ask you in just a moment then where you think it is going to go in the next 5 years. But something that I've seen, for those that haven't listened to the episode, I recorded an episode with Bruce from Payspace, who of course have been acquired by Deel. But it's really interesting, when Deel have seen innovative or really exciting products in the market that they think would be able to add to the Deel offering, as that conversation with Bruce proved, they're able to go, well, actually, that will really add value to our customers. Let's go and acquire Payspace. And it's a really interesting episode. If you haven't listened to it, so I would recommend looking at that. But so let's have a look at the next 5 years then. What's exciting you most about where payroll is going next? You mentioned real-time pay. I've seen adoption for that, obviously, in the US. Adoption is growing in the UK. Is adoption equally as, is it being adopted as much in other global areas in Europe and beyond, or is that all taking a little bit longer?
I think that's what the next thing is going to be, certainly for us. I think, when you're looking at payroll and payroll calculations, people are looking at the cost side of it. People become impatient, because it's no longer about sitting there and saying, I'm going to take my payroll submission, I'm going to enter it, and then I'm going to sit and wait for 4 days. People don't want that. They want to see what the cost of that payroll is going to be. They want to know that if I give somebody £1,000 bonus, they want to know what the impact of that is going to be on a payslip. So, I always say people will end up becoming more demanding. They will want to see things here and now, and they will want to take the lead of it as well. So rather than handing it to somebody else and not knowing what's happening in the background, they want to be in control of it. They want to be able to go into a platform and be able to say, well, hey, if I want to give, Nick 1,000 here and somebody else 500 there, and I want to change this, I want to be able to see that changing in front of me. And I want to be able to say, well, I want to change that figure. How will that look? And that's what real-time payroll will really be about, being able to take control of it yourself and enter it that, and actually getting the live figures coming back from an engine that is, part of that infrastructure, rather than going back to what it was, 5-10 years ago, where I'm just going to send it to somebody, sit back and having to wait those few days and wait for somebody to give me a gross net back, and then go, no, can I change that again? And then you send it back off again. I've been there. I've done that. You've made errors, and you have to quickly try and change that to hit your deadline dates. We've done that in operations, and we've done it for years. And I think certainly when you're talking about real-time payroll, is you want it at your fingertips, and you want all that, the infrastructure and the engines. And that's what Bruce would have been saying about, the Deel local engine, is having that all fully built into the infrastructure that we have. So I think that is really what's going to be the next few years. Clients and people will become more demanding, and they will want to really have that at their fingertips.
You make an interesting point, and we're talking a lot now about payroll and the employee experience. So I speak to payroll managers often, and you'll hear the counter argument be, look, why do we need to innovate when I'm paying people accurately, compliantly, and on time? That's kind of the payroll core values, core jobs, whatever. But I would argue back and say, look, payroll now needs to do more, because if you're just doing those three things, but you're not looking after the experience of the employee as well, through things like real-time pay or whatever the solution is, maybe you have to pay or tokenize payroll even, and the markets are changing all the time, then those employees will go somewhere else that will. So it's no longer just about that, because of course those things are important, but it's actually now about looking at other areas that you can influence a business, which is through employee attraction, retention, onboarding, and those elements. I think it's really interesting now about really bringing that employee experience to the fore.
And the thing is that those companies, the companies that you work for, they will want more from you as well. So they will want payroll information as early as possible. They want to know that the cost of the business of what that payroll is. They want to know it as early as possible in the months. They need to factor that into their forecast as well. So they will want that information earlier. When you're talking about earned wage access, that is something that is new. That is, well, it's not as new anymore, but it's things that people will want. They want access to their their pay and their salary as early as possible. So, being able to provide those sort of things, you're absolutely right. It's not just about paying accurately and on time. I also think you've got to look at it from the side of the payroll operations teams and the payroll managers that are physically working. Is it really enough to sit there and say that your job is about data input and processing? You've got, all these payroll people that we speak to on a daily basis. They're amazing payroll people. And is their time really being used well? I call it lifting and shifting, taking information and taking it from here and data inputting it and processing it. They've got such amazing knowledge behind them. And you can use that to educate the people within the business about, the role of payroll and what it is that you're doing and helping the employees. So is your time really best used to just sit there and be inputting and processing? I'd be like, let your payroll software take care of all that for you. There's other things that you can be concentrating on and putting your time and effort into.
Well, certainly you can, Vic. I think it might be worth bringing into focus the size and scale of your operation, because Deel's growth is pretty well known, pretty well documented now, and the valuation has gone from this stratospheric in terms of its size and scale. What's something that people may not realize about payroll at that scale? What are some of the things? I mean, feel free if you want to share some of what that volume looks like from your perspective, because it really is a huge operation you're now managing. But what are some of the things that perhaps people don't realize at that level?
That's a really great question. I think certainly when you're looking at, I don't think that people really realize it is about the tech and it is about the software, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes in Deel as well. I was very, very surprised, and it was such a pleasant surprise when I joined Deel to see the amount of support that you have behind the scenes from their engineering teams, from their product teams. And the thing that surprised me the most is all of these people have such an amount of passion for payroll. And I thought it was just the payroll operations teams. I'd only ever seen payroll operations, the people who were doing it. And I think it is such widely spread within, certainly within Deel, you see the product teams. And, that was one of the things that really jumped out to me. Their product teams, they all knew payroll. I didn't have to sit there and tell them, well, this is how we do it in payroll. They all knew. They all came from payroll backgrounds. They'd built payroll products before. And I found that so surprising. And it was a real breath of fresh air to really see that the whole of Deel all had the same level of passion for payroll that me and that what I'd already always known about operations to people. Actually, everybody, they live and breathe it at such a great size as well. There's over 7,000 employees within Deel, and everybody has that same level of commitment and passion that I'd always seen within the payroll industry. I just never knew and never had experienced it before, that this went further than just an operations side.
It's a really interesting perspective, and actually not one I'd considered. I mean, it's kind of obvious when you lay it out like that. When you start working for a vendor, of course, if it's a payroll-related product vendor that you're working for, of course the product teams are going to have payroll experience, and as are the sales teams. Of course, if you're coming from an in-house environment, when you look at that first new system, you're kind of liaising with your own IT teams, I guess, and going, well, they don't really know payroll, so you're reliant on what the vendor's telling you, and there's a little bit of back and forth, and you're trying to determine what's right and what's not. Of course, moving into that environment where everyone from the sales team to the product team to the marketing team, they all get payroll. That must have been,
To me,
I hadn't considered
that was obviously that my first real experience of, like, say, being from an in-house, a local payroll, and now going to this global level of everybody based, we're all based around the world, and everybody has that same level of passion, and really finding that they knew payroll at such an in-depth level as well. That for me was the big changeover of, coming to somewhere like Deel where everybody's, like, say, so passionate about it, but that they knew everything about payroll. And yeah, it was really, really welcoming for me to really see that. It's something I've never seen. And at that, like, say, that size as well.
I can't say I'm surprised, on the, you've got more responsibility on the sales side, because I've seen you at Payo at the stands liaising with the sales teams, and I've seen your passion for giving a demo to a new potential prospect, right? They've come over to the stand, the sales team are busy. You'll say, I'll step in, and here you go. You're straight into your flow. So I've seen it firsthand. It's nice. That passion comes through, not just from you, from your whole team.
Yeah, we did have fun, Nick. We've had fun in Orlando, and we've seen it in Nashville. So, and they're the bits that I really enjoy. I love going out to them sort of events whereby you can really get in front of a client. And I think that's why, the role that I'm doing now within pre-sales is really getting in front of clients and talking to them about payroll and how, moving to a different vendor. There's so many things that you really have to take into consideration, and making sure that you choose the right vendor as well is something that you're going to be, this people do implementations and change providers maybe only 3 or every 5 years. So you really got to make sure that you get it right and you choose the right one for you.
Sure. Well, look, I think it's Nashville again next year. I'm assuming you'll be there. So if anyone's thinking about going to Pay for the first time, come over to Nashville. It's the best venue for me. I've been to several. It was the best one. And you can come and see Vic on the stand and take the demo directly, right?
I'll be there. I'll be speaking to people again. Nashville is a great place. And Payroll Org do such a fantastic event. So yeah, I'll definitely be there next year.
So last question before I open the vault. What do you think the payroll function will look like in 2030? So 5 years from now. And how can professionals start preparing for your vision of what it'll look like from today?
I do think it will be very, very different. And I do think the next 5 years is really going to be one of those that really evolves within the payroll industry. I think you're going to, I think for me, certainly that the fact of bringing a lot more AI into it. But I think certainly people are going to rely a lot more on the real-time factor of it. I think people are going to be paying out. I think this section of, how do I explain this? Payroll cycles maybe won't exist as much. I may be daydreaming of this one. But I think when you're sitting there saying, I will wait until, in the UK, the majority of the payrolls are going to be a monthly payroll. I think that's really going to start to change, because I think the cycle of a payroll will still be there, but I think people are going to want their salaries to be paid out daily, weekly. They're going to want it. If I've earned it, I want to be paid it. So I think you're going to take that aspect of saying, we can do the calculations for you in real time. I want to be paid it straight away. So I'd really like to think that is the way in which we're going to be going over sort of like the next 5 years.
I do agree. I have to say, I mean, I've got my kids to look at the attention spans of things. Everything is so instant now. People are ready to move on. You've got TikTok and Snapchat. I lose track of what's going on, but I know it's also fast. Like, we've got access to instant movies, instant taxis, instant hotels, and all these different things where you can, kind of stream whatever you want. I think people are getting used to that instant requirement. So the idea of waiting a month to get paid is, I think, pretty soon going to fall out of sync with where the rest of every other industry and thing we're exposed to is going. I know there's some resistance to that. I've had Simon Parsons say he didn't think we'll ever kind of see the dissolution of the monthly pay cycle in the UK.
The monthly payroll cycle will be there. I think, certainly my operations side of it thinks, oh God, there's going to be a lot of operational side of how it's going to work and how the process is. Yeah, that's going to take some working out how to do that. But I think you're right. I think people will want instant. They're not, they can see, and certainly when you look at global payroll now, and you've got people being weekly payroll, fortnightly, bi-monthly, people are now saying, well, why do I have to wait a month if I've earned it and I've, and I can see it and I can see that calculation? Why can't I draw down on that? So I think really that is the way, and certainly the next 5 years, that you still get the calculation will still be there for a monthly, but I think people will say, hey, I want the access to that now. And
I think if you don't do it, you'll lose them. There'll be a competitor A saying, well, we'll pay them weekly and you're paying them bi-weekly. They'll go, well, they get it every week. I want the same. You're going to have to adjust, or they're going to go over there. So I can see it happen. Fascinating journey. Let's open the payroll vault. So 3 short, sharp questions here for you, Vic. Number 1 is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received in your payroll career?
I'd say be inquisitive. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to sit there and ask those questions. If you're in a room and you think, oh God, I really wish I would have asked that, just ask it. You're not going to look stupid in front of everybody. I always say to people, there is no stupid question. So if you want it, just ask it.
Love that. I think curiosity is one of the most undervalued leadership qualities. So I'm right behind you on that one for sure. Number 2, what book, podcast, or resource would you recommend to every payroll leader?
Ooh, I've got it. Let's go back to that one. Where's that book that I've got Max's book somewhere.
Oh yeah, the Global Payroll Frameworks, the Management Toolkit, Global Payroll Management Toolkit.
The Management Toolkit, it literally arrived yesterday. I was talking to Max and it literally arrived, and I'm like, that is my book for the weekend. So that is absolutely the one that I'm going to be reading.
Well, it's a great shout out, because I think the episode, they'll already be out by the time this gets published, but the episode before this one is the one with Max talking about his book. So there you go.
And literally, that book arrived, I ordered it. And so, yeah, on my way back to Dubai next week, that's going to be my book of choice that I'm going to be reading. So I've seen it all over LinkedIn. I've seen, it's definitely the book that I've waited for it to arrive. So yeah, it arrived yesterday. That's the one I'm going to be reading next week.
Great shout out to someone who's equally as passionate about payroll as well. So we need to try and support our community with these books. Go and get a copy if you haven't got one already.
I love the fact now that the payroll industry are now doing books. It's great to see people publishing payroll books, and with Max's books, I think it's great. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that next week.
Fantastic. And last but no means least, if you weren't in payroll, what would you be doing? Maybe it'd be recruitment. I don't know.
I think it would have been recruitment. I think it was the industry that I first, back in the day with Adecco, I absolutely would have gone into recruitment. I think I always wanted to be a permanent consultant for some reason. I thought that was where my passion was going to be. So I do think if I wasn't in payroll, I most probably would have. I could have been working alongside you. And
I think you've done it at scale anyway at Deel, right? You've grown that team exponentially, growing another team, and now you're back in sales anyway. You're almost doing the job.
Round full circle. So yeah, I think I would have been in recruitment most probably.
Fantastic. Well, Vic O'Callaghan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, you are Director of Global Payroll Pre-Sales and Delivery at Deel. For those who want to find out more, I will put a link in the episode notes so you can go straight through to the Deel website, find out more about the products and services they provide. But also, I'll put links, Vic's LinkedIn profile in there as well. If you want to connect directly and find out more from a more personal level about the services they provide or Vic's journey, please do reach out. I just need to say a huge thank you, Vic O'Callaghan, for joining me on the Payroll Podcast. I mean, great to have you on the show. I know we've been trying to get this arranged for a little while, so thank you for being so honest and upfront and transparent about your journey and for sharing it with our wonderful community here. And I'm very, very thankful and hope our listeners have enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe, review, and let us know what you think about the show. And thanks again for joining me on today's episode.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Global teams are more connected today than ever, but managing payroll, HR, and IT can still feel fragmented. But Deel simplifies global work with one platform that keeps everything running smoothly. No compliance guesswork, no third-party payroll, just seamless operations backed by 24/7 expert support. That's why over 35,000 companies trust Deel to handle their global workforce. Visit deel.com/nickday to see how Deel can help. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform.